I started growing figs in 2015 and have now moved up to fresh fig pancakes and a smorgasbord of fresh figs for when our friends come and see us. This is a beginner's guide. We're going to set you off right, give you a few pointers, and you too can have success growing figs. Welcome to the Planted Courtyard. My name is Cooke, and in this episode I'm going to introduce to you one of my favourite plants. Consider this to be the beginner's guide to growing figs. I have had fresh figs for many years now, and they are fantastic, and I cannot recommend them enough. But as with any plant, it's difficult to know what part of the season is best to jump into, and I consider December the best month to start my pitch to encourage you to grow figs. The reason for that is that the plants now are going into full dormancy. This is a fig here. This is called Bensonhurst Purple. These are the old fruits that didn't ripen. As you see, all the leaves have fallen off and dormancy is around the corner. It's much better to protect a fig in the winter when it's fully dormant than to have it not quite dormant, try and wrap it, and then it's half alive, it's half dormant, and that's not ideal. I found that dormancy is a great way to get plants to survive even colder winters because they are fully dormant. So I'm going to be showing you how to wrap a plant, how to cut down a barrel, and how to take a plant that maybe you have already and increase its chances of growing for you next year. Now I must point out your website is called ourfigs.com. I joined this back in early 2015, and ourfigs.com is a group of enthusiastic fig growers, some with huge collections, and people trade cuttings. So you might actually go and buy 3 cuttings, have 3 of them grow, keep one for yourself, and then you can trade those 2 for other varieties that you might want to grow. Here in the north we get leaves start to break in May, and then fruiting, fingers crossed, is late July, early August. So I found that choosing figs that have got a smaller fruit size is much more beneficial. Now when I'm here we are in December, now is the perfect time to take cuttings. These are the cuttings that you'll be making. They're 6 to 7 inches long. This is a terminal cutting. We've got 2 that came from that same branch. And these are plants that you can put into a bag that can vent and put it in the crisper drawer of your refrigerator. And then next late January, early February, you can start to work with these, and that will be featured in another video. But let me just show you how I took that. This is a substantial branch, not too thick, not too thin. What I would consider too thin would be this. You can clearly see the difference. This will grow, but it doesn't have as much energy in it for it to put out reliable roots. It might need a bit more baby care. But this thickness is just perfect. This is 1/2 inch across, maybe a little bit more, maybe 3/4. A lot of energy and a lot of ability for it to put out roots. And starting from the top, this is the terminal bud. We want to cut there. That's the cutting, a terminal cutting. Very important now that you actually cut back to a bud that you can see, and then come down again to another. That's a bit of a brontosaurus bone. It's a little bit on the large side, but that's fine, that'll grow. You could, if you wanted to, cut here and make it a little bit shorter. That doesn't matter. We are spoilt here with the quality of wood. And then always make sure that you cut back to a bud and then cut back to a bud, and there's your cutting. Remove any little leaf stubs. So you might find that you actually have access to a fig tree that can produce cuttings, and you might be able to give a handful of cuttings of your fig to somebody else in exchange for a handful of cuttings from their fig, and that's how it starts. So let's go and look at how to cut down a barrel that will be used to give our plant winter protection, and how we're then going to put the barrel over the plant and prepare that particular plant to go through the winter. What I'm going to show you now is how I utilize these barrels. Widely available. I've cut the end off already. You can get these on Craigslist for $25. I've seen them for $10. Sometimes they're free. Come in different sizes. But you can't have an enclosed barrel. The temperature will spike and the plant will rot. What this does is produce a very rigid surface to get the plant protection from strong storms in the winter. What happens is that the wind blows past the stem, and as it's blowing, it sucks out the moisture from that stem. It desiccates the stem. It goes completely dry. Then it's dead. So this barrel will be modified to put over our plant, and we have to make sure it can vent. So what I'm going to do is show you how I mark this out and then cut it so that you can do this for your figs as well. The first step is to put some mark out lines on the end of the barrel. This allows me to see how far I have to go from one mark to the next as I am rolling the barrel with the saw blade in it. Here I'm marking out with a tape a 4-inch drop. You want to avoid at all costs having a spiral, so don't eyeball it. This little step takes but a minute, and it gives you that next mark to aim for a nice steady cut. There's different ways to do this, and of course you can do the way that's best suited to what you've got and how you want it done. I like to trap the barrel up against a brick wall and then lower the blade onto my mark, and then with my left foot I'm just keeping the barrel pushed up to the wall, and then I can roll the barrel with the other hand. Take the blade out, reset it, and then do it all over again. Here I'm in complete control. I'm not waving the saw around, and because I put those marks on, I've got a nice even path, and I know exactly where I have to aim for. Just stop before you cut all the way through and put a couple of matching marks. This just shows you exactly where the cuts are parallel for a good match in the future. And then you can go back and finish off the cut, and before you know it, you have a barrel with a lid. So this mark right here, this is so that I can match it up and I know exactly what area goes with what. There. Absolutely perfect. Very happy with that. So now what I do is this gets threaded over my fig tree. I can prune out some of the thin branches, leave the stronger branches, and I can also cut it back to this height. In the past I've cut it back to maybe 2 feet or 18 inches. This year I can go a little bit taller. Hopefully that means that next year I'll have more growth that will grow branches earlier in the season, and I'll have more figs. The benefit of this is that I can pack this with dry leaves, and that will act as further insulation, and it's quite a volume. So let's get to it. This French fig is just finished its 3rd year, and it had a wonderful crop. And because it was such a high performer, I've chosen it to be the recipient of our new barrel. Now here I am doing a bit of care, pruning out some branches that were crossing, taking out some thin branches, and I'm making sure that I fill that base with nice crisp dry leaves. Those dry leaves offer huge insulation capability. Think of it as nature's duvet. And then I take a line and pay attention here not to do a slip knot. When you tie it onto that branch, it needs to not restrict in any way. A bowline is good, and so is a clove hitch. Either of those will work fine. Then you want to grab all your branches together and very carefully just wrap it around once and then wrap it around twice. A bit of a shimmy and a shake and it'll all stand upright, and then tie it back onto the line, not the branch. So now we've got our crown set, we've got our leaves in place. All that remains is for us to gently lay our barrel over the top, get it centered, push it into the ground slightly, and now we can start to fill it full of leaves. Add a nice even layer of leaves around all sides of the plant and just let them fall in there. You don't need to pack it down or in any way make it too dense. And you can just shake the plant and it'll go into the center. This will increase the insulation value that you've got on all sides of your plant. Remember, we don't want this to grow, we just don't want it to die. That's our whole goal here. Take your clippers and you can remove the excess plant growth and then add a little bit more leaf matter on top. And you can just tap the sides and it'll keep taking leaves. It might be that a week from now I go back to this and I'll probably add some more leaves, but that density will have happened naturally rather than it being forced. Now it's important that I put a lid on this, so drilling a couple of holes will allow me to pass a string through, and then by matching up my marks I can put that lid on there and know that it is going to stay put. It's vitally important that you don't put plastic over a barrel like this. It must vent, and this vent is what will help it survive the winter. Now I used this trick back in England many years ago. A few sticks sticking out of the barrel by 2 or 3 inches, and then on top of that I can put my lid, and that ensures that I've got this gap. Any heat that builds up can easily vent, and then tying it down is very straightforward. Should I get myself a big storm and lots of heavy snow, take the sticks out and I put some bricks on there. So just a few things to get straight with this. I think one of the most difficult things to comprehend is that you're not trying to keep this warm, but you're trying to prevent it from getting cold. It's very easy for this to heat up during a bright sunny winter's day in January, and it gets too hot. So this gap with these sticks is the ventilation that allows it to vent and not get hot, but what it does is keep down here from freezing. I would expect there to be a little bit of dieback, maybe the top 4 or 5 inches, but I fully expect the rest of the growth in there to stay warm and healthy and ready for growing next year. I've had a lot of fun growing figs, and I would put it at probably a joint number 1 in terms of ease and reward with raspberries for kids to get growing, but the flavor is just spectacular. If you've never had a fresh fig, you absolutely have to give it a try. I'm excited by this method. I have high expectations, and if you have a fig and you want to try and get it to ripen figs for you next year, give this a go. It's important that our fig hotel can withstand the wind throughout the entire winter. We don't want it to last in December and January, only for February to come along and blow it away. So here I've added some wooden posts that go into the ground by a foot or so, and then some screws fastened to the base. Really will hold that in place. And for good measure, we'll add some granite blocks to go on top of the lid to hold that in place. And don't forget, this is now insulated, vented, weighted, tied up and fixed. Happy spring. Thank you for watching The Planted Courtyard, the beginner's guide to growing figs. Here we've got McCool, Genovese Nero, and the green one is Brooklyn White. They come in all sizes, all colors, all different flavors. But we've got to start somewhere. Don't forget that this is the beginner's guide and not the advanced guide. When you get into advanced, you'll be able to go out into your garden, pick numerous varieties, and you'll be able to make your own, wait for it, fig pancake. Thank you for watching. Tell your friends. Bye for now.